When we talk about why independent women win in the long run, we're talking about a journey that's powered by purpose, discipline, and a quiet fire that doesn't need applause to stay lit. The kind of independence that comes from building yourself piece by piece, lesson by lesson, isn't about being alone. It's about standing rooted no matter who stands with you. It's about knowing your value before the world tries to price it for you. The first truth is that independence teaches vision. A woman who learns how to move with clarity, how to strategize her next step instead of waiting for permission, becomes unstoppable. She recognizes that her path isn't defined by circumstance, but by intention. She develops the strength to walk away from what drains her and walk toward what grows her. She becomes the kind of woman who leads her own life instead of being led by fear, pressure, or expectation. And once a woman sees what she's capable of on her own, she never questions her ability again. The second truth is that independence builds resilience. When you learn to depend on your own grind, your own creativity, your own problem solving, you develop something that can't be taken from you. You learn how to bend without breaking, adapt without losing yourself, recover without resentment. Challenges become chapters, not closures. And every time you rise wiser, stronger, and more rooted in your worth. That's why independent women outlast, outperform, and outgrow anything meant to limit them. They're not just surviving the long run, they're shaping it. So to every woman on her journey, trust the work you're putting in. Trust the intuition that keeps pulling you forward. Trust that every step you take to build yourself is a step toward a future that's bigger, richer, and more aligned than anything you've left behind. Your independence isn't just a trait, it's a force. And in the long run, that force is exactly what makes you win. The first truth is that independence teaches vision, and that kind of vision doesn't show up overnight. It's built through experience, discipline, and the courage to stand on your own decisions. An independent woman learns early that clarity isn't inherited, it's earned. She sharpens it by choosing growth over comfort, responsibility over excuses, and focus over distraction. Vision becomes her compass, not because she always knows what the next mile looks like, but because she has trained herself to trust the direction of her purpose. Independence forces you to think bigger than your environment. When a woman begins relying less on external validation and more on her own internal compass, something powerful shifts. She becomes intentional. She stops moving out of habit and starts moving with design. Instead of letting life happen to her, she begins crafting her path with precision. She learns to analyze, strategize, and execute skills that don't just build careers or businesses, but build character. And the more she invests in her own clarity, the more the world begins to reflect that clarity back to her through opportunities, connections, and breakthroughs. Vision also gives her the courage to leave behind anything that blocks her growth. Independent women understand that elevation requires separation, not because they think they're better than anyone else, but because they're committed to becoming better than who they used to be. They know that every next level of life requires a different version of themselves, and that transformation can't happen if she's anchored to distractions, toxicity, or situations that shrink her potential. When she walks away from something misaligned, she's not losing anything, she's making room. Room for peace, room for purpose, room for the kind of life that's built, not borrowed. Another layer of vision is the ability to see potential, not just in the world, but in herself. Independent women develop a strong sense of self-awareness. They know their strengths, but more importantly, they know their weaknesses. They don't run from their blind spots. They study them, improve them, and turn them into stepping stones. She doesn't hide from the work required to unlock her best self. She commits to it. This creates a level of self-trust that becomes unshakable. Once a woman truly sees her own power, truly understands what she brings to the table, she stops asking for permission to sit at it. Independence also teaches her the discipline of long-term thinking. Instead of chasing short-term validation or temporary wins, she invests in future stability, future joy, future fulfillment. She learns patience. She learns strategy. She learns how to plant seeds today that she won't harvest until later. Vision expands her understanding of timing. She knows that everything doesn't have to happen now to still be valuable. She's not rushing, she's building. And that difference is what separates those who burn out from those who break through. With that vision comes leadership, not necessarily leadership of others, but leadership of herself. She becomes the CEO of her own life. She takes responsibility for her choices, her habits, her outcomes. She doesn't blame her past for her present, and she doesn't wait for someone else to fix what she has the power to change. She leads her life with confidence and intentionality, and that leadership inspires people around her, whether she realizes it or not. Her independence doesn't isolate her, it elevates her and those connected to her. Finally, vision gives her the faith to keep moving even when the road isn't clear. She understands that independence isn't about having every answer. It's about having the resilience to find solutions. It's about trusting that the path will open as long as she keeps walking. She knows that progress isn't always loud and success isn't always instant, but she believes in the compound effect of consistent effort. Every small step adds up. Every private victory becomes a public breakthrough later. That belief system becomes her engine. This is why independent women win in the long run, because they learn how to see beyond the moment. They see who they're becoming. They see what they're building. They see the life they're destined for. And once a woman develops that kind of vision, she becomes unstoppable. The world doesn't shape her future, she does. The second truth is that independence builds resilience, and this resilience becomes the quiet engine behind a woman's long-term success. It's not the loud, dramatic strength people post about, it's the deep internal durability that forms when a woman learns to rely on her own mind, her own work ethic, and her own ability to rise. Resilience isn't born from ease, it's carved out of challenge. And independent women don't just survive challenge, they turn it into fuel. When a woman steps into independence, she starts to understand that every setback carries a lesson, every obstacle carries a skill, and every struggle carries a doorway to a stronger version of herself. She stops looking at adversity as punishment and starts seeing it as preparation. This mindset shift is powerful. Instead of asking, "Why is this happening to me?" she starts asking, "What is this trying to teach me?" That question alone separates her from the person she used to be. Resilience also forms when she realizes that depending on herself doesn't mean she can't receive support. It simply means she's not controlled by the lack of it. She learns to move forward with or without applause, motivation, or validation. She becomes the type of woman who shows up even when no one is watching, who works on her craft even when it's uncomfortable, who keeps going even when the results aren't immediate. That consistency builds a strength that doesn't fade when pressure hits. In fact, it amplifies. Through independence, she develops emotional resilience. She understands that not everyone will understand her decisions, her boundaries, or her goals, and that's okay. She stops shrinking herself to make other people comfortable. She stops betraying her intuition to maintain connections that don't respect her. She learns to say no without guilt and to say yes without fear. She becomes comfortable walking away from what disrupts her peace, knowing that protecting her mental and emotional well-being is not selfish, it's strategic. That emotional fortitude becomes one of her greatest assets in the long run. Another key layer of resilience comes from learning how to problem solve. Independent women don't collapse at the first sign of difficulty. They get resourceful. They study, they research, they experiment, they adjust. They understand that solutions aren't always obvious, but they're always possible. Every challenge they navigate sharpens their creativity and expands their capacity. This ability to adapt without losing themselves makes them incredibly hard to defeat. Even when they stumble, they fall forward. Financial resilience also grows from independence. When a woman learns how to manage her money, earn her own income, or build something that belongs to her, she gains a sense of stability that can't be stripped away. She's not easily manipulated, rushed, or pressured. She makes choices from confidence, not desperation. She learns the discipline to save, invest, and build long-term security. And as she strengthens her financial foundation, she strengthens every other part of her life as well. One of the most powerful aspects of resilience is recovery, the ability to get back up, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. Independent women learn how to restore themselves after life hits hard. They learn how to breathe again after heartbreak, how to trust again after betrayal, how to believe again after disappointment. They understand that healing isn't a sign of weakness, it's proof of strength. They refuse to let pain become a permanent identity. Instead, they use it to deepen their wisdom, sharpen their boundaries, and elevate their expectations. This resilience doesn't make them cold, it makes them grounded. It makes them compassionate. It gives them the ability to handle life without falling apart every time something shifts. And in a world full of unpredictability, that kind of inner stability is a superpower. Ultimately, independent women win in the long run because resilience becomes their second language. They've learned how to endure, how to adapt, how to rebuild, and how to rise. They know that life will test them, but they also know they were built for the test. Every setback becomes a setup for a stronger comeback. Every challenge becomes proof of how far they've grown. And by the time the world sees their success, what they're really seeing is a woman who refused to quit, one who turned her struggles into strategy, her lessons into leadership, and her resilience into her greatest victory. And so, as we close this message, understand this independence isn't just a path, it's a transformation. It shapes your vision, strengthens your resilience, and molds you into a woman who knows exactly who she is and what she's capable of. The world may not always recognize your grind, your growth, or your glow right away, but that doesn't matter. What matters is that you recognize it. What matters is that you stay committed to the woman you're becoming. Because the truth is, independent women don't win by chance. They win by alignment, by intention, and by refusing to settle for a life that doesn't honor their worth. They rise because they keep moving. They elevate because they keep learning. They win because they keep believing, even when the road is long, even when the noise is loud, even when the vision is still unfolding. So walk forward with confidence, protect your peace, trust your inner voice, and remember that you're not just building a life, you're building a legacy. One choice, one step, one breakthrough at a time. Your independence is not a destination, it's your power. And as long as you keep embracing it, you will win, not just now, but every day, all the way through the long run.